Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight. It's really not been the best day for weather, obviously, in Sydney, and it's just nice to see some faces here. You're the lucky few who get to hear this terrific speaker we have tonight. So I'll introduce him in a second. Firstly, my name's Luke Davids. I'm CEO of Titan in my spare time. I'm a technology and logistics and e-commerce consultant and player, and this time of year for me has been really hectic as well, which I think quite put into play that it was Cyber Monday this week. So excuse the face. So Titan is a relatively new startup. We're a not-for-profit foundation. We need to work on our events, and this is the first of the events we'll be doing. We work on our events and our attendees as we go. But what we have sort of managed to do so far is bring together a great list of people and try and create a network of people who are really looking to give back to charities and put things back to charities who are looking to use the knowledge that they have. So we start tonight. We have a number of programs that run, including mentorship, including technology grants, data scientist programs, but also we plan to do a lot of events and podcasts where we bring in actually knowledgeable people who can speak and give us a bit of information about the charitable sector and odds and value. This is where Lance comes in. Lance is a serial entrepreneur. I'm going to read this without, because I don't want to get this wrong. Consumer goods specialist and is passionate advocate for socially conscious entrepreneurism. Lance has he's founded a number of companies in the USA, and they're all very much about a guide to modern entrepreneurship, and he's got a passion for developing companies that combine doing good and business pursuits in one, right? So we're very lucky to have Lance here to speak tonight, and we're really intrigued to hear his story. So I'm going to pass over to him to give us a bit of info about what he's done to why doing good is good for business. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Luke. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I am going to make this as fun as possible. This is a human story. I know a lot of you have been dragged here into the rain, but that's okay. But I think you're going to enjoy the story. I do this story for all different types of crowds. So whether you're interested, and there's some good food coming, so that makes it worth it. But whether you're interested in business or whether you're interested in what we call socially conscious businesses, what I'm very passionate about is something called social conscious entrepreneurism, and it's about creating businesses that give back, but also businesses that are highly commercially viable. And so I've always been passionate about building business, but also giving back, and I want to know how could I do both of them at the same time. So not just, a lot of people go down the charity route. A lot of people decided what's become very popular is social enterprises, which are basically businesses that people find an issue, and then they find, instead of putting a hat out and raising money, they basically find a business model that would enable them to raise the funds in order to meet that business. So we've come up with an alternative way, and I'm going to speak about that tonight. Okay. So the way I like to start doing this is by introducing myself, and I like to call myself a serial social conscious consumer product entrepreneur. You get that? It's a bit of a mouthful. Serial social conscious consumer product entrepreneur. What does it mean? It basically means I make cool products that also try and make the world a better place. Honestly, I came up with the name because my brother is an ear, nose and throat surgeon, and there's lots of you doctors in there, and I'm so sick of my grandmother always saying, when she introduced us, she used to introduce me like this: Greta, hello, how are you? You know my son, the doctor. This is his brother, Lance. So I had to come up with something that was a little bit more interesting sounding, so I came up with that name. But I'm going to tell you the story tonight about how my business partner, a guy by the name of Ido Leffler, a guy who I met 15 years ago, how we started 4 companies over the course of the last 15 years. These 4 companies, consumer product companies, we started them in the US. We built them into multi-million-dollar companies against some of the biggest multinational companies in the world with billion-dollar budgets. And all we had was a lot of determination, perseverance, and something that we call in Yiddish chutzpah. But we also used a little secret ingredient, and that's what I'll be talking to a lot about tonight, which is something called cause marketing and socially conscious techniques. So that's my business partner, Ido. Ido was born in Israel. I was born in South Africa. I came here in 1997. Back then I had a South African accent. Usually people get that in. I still have a very South African accent. But Ido and I met actually playing soccer. I arrived here, I didn't know many people. Someone advised me to go to join a soccer team, a local soccer team. It was halfway through the season and I trialed, and they liked the way I played, and they said, we'd like you to join the team, but the problem is the registrations have already been done. So would you mind playing under the name of somebody else? Okay, well, what do I care? Because, well, this guy's name is Ido Leffler, and you'll just play under his name. He started with us and he went to now work in Indonesia. So I had a great season. Halfway through the season, we got to the finals. And at the end, in the finals, I actually scored the winning goal. So I was pretty proud of myself. It was a local team. It was followed by the local community newspaper. And I got the newspaper that following weekend, and in the back page, when it was following the results of the community shields, it actually said, and the winning goal for Monash was scored by Ido Leffler. So I'm like, who the fuck is this Ido Leffler guy? So about a few weeks later, I'm with a good friend of mine, and we're at a pub up in the North Shore, and he said, that's Ido Leffler, that's Ido Leffler. So I walk up to him, and I smack him on the back of the shoulder. He turns around, and he's quite a small guy. I'm not that small. I think he was thinking something else was about to happen. And I said, do you know who I am? And he went, no. And I said, I'm the guy who's been giving you all the glory. And honestly, nothing's ever changed since. He still gets all of the glory. But Ido and I came back together in 2003. We actually went to the same university. Obviously, I met him that night at the pub. We went different directions. I started working at PwC in accounting and finance, and went into corporate finance and M&A. He went to Asia to work for a family business in sales and marketing. So 2 very different skills. And we ran into each other at Martin Place in 2003, completely serendipitously. I was ready to move on and start a new business, be a little bit more entrepreneurial. I was sick of the corporate environment. And Ido was just started a new business called Trend Trade. This is where you learn in the very early days. You make all your mistakes. You come up with stupid names like Trend Trade. And that was a business that represented health and beauty brands and took those brands international. And so I loved the concept. We got together. I was numbers, he was pictures. It worked really well. I moved with my new wife then to London, and we started our very first business. 3 years into that business, and having built a number of distributor contacts, retailers, and learning a lot about the health and beauty world, we raised our first amount of money. And that's when we came up with this idea, which was to create a natural beauty skincare brand that was affordable, fun, and sexy. So a brand called Yes to Carrots. Any of you heard of Yes to at all? A couple of you know, it's in Boots in the UK. No? Okay. Well, obviously didn't do such a good job in Australia. Well, in the US, it's actually quite big. In 2006, we launched this brand in Walgreens in the US, which is the biggest drugstore in the world. Today, it's the second biggest natural beauty brand in America. It's in about 25,000 stores from every major retailer in America, from Walgreens, CVS, Walmart, Target, every major player carries it. And it was a great journey that took us from here to living in Israel, where we made the product, to all the way to San Francisco, where we sold the product to private equity. In San Francisco, that's when we started to have our first opportunities. We brought in private equity. They really helped us take the business to the next level. And before not too long, we had the #1 natural facial care item. We were the #2 natural brand. And we're also a 2-time PETA award winner. Those are the crazy guys that throw blood at everybody. It was a great experience. And we had a hell of a fun time. But one of the things that was really important to us was trying to put together a business that also gave back and that also impacted the world. We didn't really know how to do that. So when we first started Yes2, the way we started was we came up with an idea that we would create a not-for-profit side fund, and we called it the Yes2 Seed Fund. And basically, we decided, okay, well, what are we going to do? We can allocate funds from sales to the seed fund. And we thought, okay, well, why don't we invite charities to pitch to us? And if they make us cry, then we'll give them money. Well, when you're two blokes who are doing skincare, you tend to cry a lot. So everybody made us cry. And we pretty much gave everybody, and it was completely non-impactful, or unimpactful, whatever the word is. And so we started to think, well, how do we actually give back in a way that is impactful and meaningful and will give back to the business? And that's when we came up with the Yes2 Seed Fund. And so we started to think about how do we relate this to the business. In fact, the private equity guys, who here is in business and is not a doctor, because I've only met doctors tonight. Yeah, go. So the private equity guys are all about numbers. And so when we told them the great idea about having a nice little cozy, seed fund which gave back, they were like, okay, how does this give back to the business? And so we said, well, we don't quite know yet, but we'll work it out. They said, well, you've got to work this out, or we're scratching this from the books. And so we developed a seed fund which started out as developing organic fruit and vegetable gardens in public high schools in the US. We thought that was a nice way of giving back, of teaching people in schools and teaching kids in schools where actual natural, believe it or not, in America, if you ask them where a tomato or a cucumber comes from, they'll say it's a can. So actually teaching them and letting them be part of that, we thought would be really impactful. We built a bunch of gardens. It was a lot of fun. We got to meet a lot of famous people in LA, so that made it fun for us as well. But it wasn't impactful. Then we were approached by a UN foundation group called Mama Hope. And they came to us and said, hey, the amount of money that you spend, and we'll spend like $30,000 to build an organic fruit and vegetable in a school. They said, for that amount of money, we can build about 3 or 4 acres of vegetable and fruit gardens in Kenya. And all the school children who don't have access to any good nutrition can actually live off that and eat it during their school hours. And we were, that's unbelievable. So we actually reallocated all the funds, and it went all to basically helping these kids in Kenya, creating massive gardens, and that really worked. Not only did it work for us, but we started to see our employees starting to get really interested. They started following and wanted to get involved. They asked to kind of fly over to Kenya. Then we started seeing our consumers finding out and asking, well, how do we give and buy your products and give to this seed fund? And they absolutely loved it. And we saw the impact of building something good and relating it into your business. And so this got us excited. A couple of years down the line, we sold out of Yes2. This was a couple of years ago. And we started to think about, well, what do we do next? And it became quite obvious to Ido and I that our next step was about building a brand that was all about giving back. And so we started to take inspiration from brands like Tom's Shoes. Any of you familiar with Tom's Shoes? Fantastic brand, started by Blake Markowski in like 2007. He sold it to Bain Capital for $650 million. The whole brand is based on every pair of shoes that he sells. He will donate a pair of shoes to kids in need. Now, remember, I'll take you back. When I say I started a natural beauty brand, like most people go like, everyone starts a natural beauty brand. It was 2006. So in those days, starting a natural beauty brand was quite cutting edge, which is how we got it to the #2. In the days of Tom's Shoes, no one was doing that. No one was giving for every single product that you gave. People thought that was crazy. He's given so many shoes away that they ran out of shoes to give, or they ran out of children to give the free shoes to. So they came up with a whole bunch of different things. And he built an incredibly profitable brand, which he made hundreds of millions of dollars out of. Warby Parker, have you guys heard of Warby Parker? I don't think it's in Australia, but Warby Parker is a great brand, online e-commerce brand. You want to ask a question?
I was just going to say, I have a pair and they're amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to think that they'd be a like for Tom.
Absolutely. Same concept. The whole thing was developed based on, for every single pair that they sell, they donate the gift of vision in third world countries. So they've been working and they've been able to affect millions of people's lives. So we really loved this concept and took a lot of inspiration from them. And so when we started to think about the next thing that we wanted to do, it actually happened quite organically. We were building one of these organic fruit and vegetable gardens with Yes2, and one of the teachers from the public schools came to us and said, we love what you're doing, thank you so much. By the way, do you have school supplies? I said, what do you mean do we have school supplies? You're a public school. He goes, no, we actually pay out of our own pocket, the teachers, to buy the school supplies for our kids in the public schools. We said, come on. That must just be an anomaly. That's not. She goes, no, go ask everybody. This is a real problem. And so we actually decided to research the problem. And after working with the Department of Education in the US, and then you'll see in Australia, in the US, it's a $1.6 billion problem. On average, teachers in the US, public school teachers, will pay $500 out of their own pocket to buy school supplies for the kids. Isn't that kind of crazy? And so we thought, how do we come up with a way to solve that in the way that we know best, which is building brands, building products, but doing it in a way that's disruptive, that we can make an impact but be different, because obviously we'll have to go into a large category. We don't want to invent something. We're not tech guys. How do we do that in a completely different way? And then we started looking in Australia, and the problem in Australia was just as bad. 90% of all Aussie teachers in Australia buy essential classroom materials out of their own pocket. That's in Australia. This is, a lot of you are English. This is not the perfect place that it seems to be. We have tons of products, and I've been to all of these schools, by the way. 92% of Aussie teachers have worked with students that don't have access to basic school supplies at home. We were at a school called Broadmeadows in Melbourne, where the teacher came up to us and said, yeah, I've had a kid come up to me and say she can't do the homework. She said, why can't you do the homework? She said, well, because I don't have a pen at home. This was an amazing school. A lot of the kids are refugee kids, incredible. And 1 in 10 children in Australia actually grew up in a financially disadvantaged family. And so that's how we came up with the idea of UB. UB is a stationery or school supply brand with a very, very big difference. It's fun, it's bright, it's vibrant stationery, but for every single product that we sell, we donate a product to kids in need. How do we do this, and how do we build a brand that was both commercially viable, but also was able to give back? What we did is we took the concept and we started to think about how do we most efficiently get school supplies to kids where they need it. And we focused on America. Remember, at this stage we're in America. And so we partnered with a foundation in America called the Kids in Need Foundation, and we created classroom packs. These packs consist of 425 items that basically give a teacher every single item that she needs for 30 kids in a class. A class of kindergarten to year 6 will get everything they need. And so all we have to do is sell 425 items, and every time we sell an item, an item goes into that classroom pack. Once you've got 425, it's packed up and it's sent to our partner who gets it to the exact school that needs it. And so that's how UB was born. And so we went to Target in the US, not in Australia. Target in the US is actually no relation to Australia, is the second biggest retailer in the US. They're an $80 billion company, nearly 2,500 stores. Hugely successful, and the great thing about them is they were the #1 customer for our skincare brand. So they loved us, and we had a great open entree to them to come up with any idea that we wanted. And so when we pitched them this idea, we basically said, listen, we have an idea. We haven't launched it yet. We don't even have anything but a PowerPoint pitch document. But this is going to be completely unique, completely different, and it's going to not only differentiate you from everyone or every other retailer out there, but it's going to help you impact millions of kids. And so they got behind it. They actually invested in the business. So I don't believe that had been done before, where a major US retailer had invested in some startup off the back of a PowerPoint. And we launched Yubi in 2014 at 2,500 Target stores. Today, there's a few hundred SKUs, and we've been able to give nearly 57 million items away just from products, Yubi products that were sold at Target, and it's resulted in 134,000 of those classroom packs being generated and distributed to schools all over the US. That's resulted in nearly 4 million kids. 4 million kids got all of their school supplies in the US. At the same time, we were able to build a company and a brand that is profitable, that is extremely valuable, that employs nearly 30 people. That's incredibly fun, and to wake up to every single day and go to work. And the people who work for us are, no one's paid less than what, it's not paid like you're at a charity or you're a social enterprise. We get the best people. Most of our people come from other stationery brands because they want to be part of something that's just bigger. And so this was the first time that we were really able to prove that you can build an impact or socially conscious brand that can not only have and make a massive difference to the world, but that can be commercially viable as well. So I want to show you this video. Let's see if yeah. Where's the sounding? Yeah. I'll give you guys just a little. So the great thing about starting cool impact brands as well is that it attracts a lot of celebrities. We couldn't afford to pay someone like Usher to come and represent the brand, even go into a school. But they loved the concept of the brand so much. We were able to do a deal with him where he was able to come up with his own range, give him a little bit of a royalty, but most importantly, the goodwill that you create from doing these impact brands is so unbelievable. So have a look. He actually came to school and we created this video, and just the impact of the kids was just so amazing. I'll do it again. Let's just.
Are you guys ready to welcome the one, the only, Usher?
You are the future. Because of what you decide to do with your life, it'll change everything that's happening in many, many years from now. To be a future leader, you have to have an education. Well, if you want an education, you have to have the proper tools. Special delivery! Hey, guys!
Our goal is to provide free school supplies to every classroom that needs it.
It's black.
It's purplish.
And we really believe that together we can make that happen.
Here we go. All right. Here we go. For every UB item that you buy, a UB item is donated to a classroom that needs it here in the United States. It's just that simple.
And just feel free to just throw a paint on the wall. You can paint whatever you want. Scribble, scrabble.
Curated by Usher.
Artwork by Johnny Cheatwood.
Mixing street smarts with school smarts. Available at Target stores nationwide and at UB.com.
Thank you,
Pretty cool. Yeah. So based on UB, we started to develop other businesses, and it was all based on three major concepts: incredible people, brilliant product, and most importantly, awesome cause. So when you walk into our building today, Those are the first 3 signs in massive neon that you'll see. That's underpinned every single business that we do today. And thankfully, it's resulted in really impactful and successful businesses. The second business we started was on a similar concept. We saw a huge opportunity to create a modern tableware and mealtime solution brand that helped food insecurity in the US. This was actually quite simple. Basically, 1 in 6 kids in the US don't actually know where the next meal is coming from. So it's quite sad, you know, in a country like the US, and the abundance of money, the abundance of wealth, and the abundance of food, there is so many people going hungry. And so we thought, how do we come up with fantastic products that can help people choose and actually make an impact at the same time as enjoying that particular product? And so we developed a Cheeky brand. Same concept. We developed a brand that for every pack that we sell, we will donate a meal through Feeding America. So Feeding America is like Oz Harvest in Australia. We wanted to create a brand that also aligned with the cause. So obviously feeding, mealtime, and helping people who need food, that all aligned. And we wanted a partner who was perfectly positioned to do that. Feeding America was. And then what we wanted to do was package it so that we're able to make it make sense to the consumer. This is about giving consumers choice. So everyone out there is going to have a choice when they go to the supermarket or they go to the retailer on what they can buy. There's some great brands today like Thank You. You guys know the Thank You? You know, why would you buy a normal soap if Thank You costs the same, looks great, is a great quality product and gives back? Almost 9 out of 10 times you're going to buy the Thank You product. And that's how we think about product. But you still, there's a big difference between Thank You and us, which I don't want to kind of dwell on too much. There's really good food coming up. But the main difference with Thank You is still a social enterprise. So the way that they develop their business is a lot more difficult than how we develop and fund our business. So Cheeky, we did the same playbook. We went to Target in the US. We said we've got a great new idea. It's going to bring differentiation. It's going to bring a new type of consumer to you. But at the same time, most importantly, it's going to affect millions and millions of people. And so we developed this brand. We combined designer collaboration and influencers. So we got them to create these awesome different paper plates and all the other disposable tableware, as well as other hard products as well. And then for every pack that we sold, we donated a pack. Target absolutely loved it. Launched it in all of their stores. We had end caps with these paper plates with crazy designs and all different collaborations. And that resulted in us, over the period of 3 years, giving 17 million meals away to Feeding America. We actually became one of the biggest donors in California to Feeding America, just through this idea of coming up with a business that gives back and having a great partner. So big thrill. I always wanted to do that in Australia. It's been a lot tougher to do it in Australia because you don't have the same scale that you do in America. But I was able to convince Woolworths to come on board with the range, the Cheeky range, and I partnered with Oz Harvest. You guys know Oz Harvest? Amazing woman who runs that, Ronnie Khan. She's a good friend, also ex-South African actually. And I always wanted to create a brand that would give back to her, and you'll see why. Because I think this is the new way for charities and great organizations, like not-for-profit organizations, to both earn and develop annuity streams of income. And so we actually launched this in July. There's going to be another drop in February and so on, and hopefully that will be a sustainable brand. If you do see it in Woolworths, be nice of you to buy it.
Is this one for one as well? Or is this
Or one for one. So for every single product we sell of this one, we donate a meal to Oz Harvest. Yeah. So why is now the time? So as I said, I mentioned brands like Thank You. I mentioned brands like Who Gives a Crap, Tom's and UB. There's a massive sea change in the brands and the way that consumer products are doing business today. People are demanding it. And that's when I think what we're seeing is this major shift in the dynamics of our market. So Anyone who's done Economics 101, or those of you who haven't, I'll give you a quick lesson. You have three sectors in the market. The first sector is the public sector, that's government. That's funded by tax revenue, your tax revenue, your income tax. The second sector is the business and the private sector, that's obvious. The third sector is the social economy, and that's charities and not-for-profit organizations. And these guys live off two things. They live off money from the government, which is most of the time not very forthcoming, but mainly donors' funds. And unfortunately, it's not very sustainable. It also doesn't attract the right type of people all the time. It doesn't attract the best talent, and that causes an issue in itself. What I believe our businesses are and where I believe we're going is what I call the fourth sector, or what we're better known as the for-profit, for-purpose, or the socially conscious sector. And these are new businesses that are commercially viable businesses, but from the beginning attach themselves to a not-for-profit or charitable organization. So from the beginning, it's not about, okay, we're doing really well, who should we donate to? Or should we give a percentage of it? It's about aligning yourself with a organization that can benefit with you, and the more they benefit, the more you benefit. Because people today are demanding it. These people, I like to call them the millennials. Unfortunately, I'm just over the cusp of millennial. I mean, who's here is actually under 30, I think it's 38. Wow, look at you, look at Ted's a millennial. Yeah, whatever, dude.
About 3 weeks. 2 weeks.
But these are the guys who are obviously, now the leaders, very much becoming the senior management in all of our companies, and they are demanding very much not only that purpose and social conscious and corporate social responsibility exists within their businesses or the companies that they work for, and that purpose is placed as high as profit. You guys have heard of the triple profit line. They demand that the products that they buy also issue that type of goodness. And so if you look at the stats, this is research stats that shows that 91% of consumers want more products and services they use to support a cause. 89% want to switch brands to one associated with a cause. And 88% want to hear how companies are supporting social issues. I mean, those are pretty convincing stats. So, if you walk into our company today, remember I said our business exists on 3 pillars. Incredible people, brilliant product, and awesome cause. That's the front of our office. As you walk in, we put it there in huge neon lights. And in fact, to see one of the brands that we develop and that we're doing now, she's a girl by the name of Millie Bobby Brown. I don't know if you heard of what Stranger Things? So Al in Stranger Things. She's one of the hottest actresses in Gen Z, and we're building a skincare brand with her. She walked into, and she said when she saw this sign, that's when she realized this is the right company for me to partner with. The last business on that slide of 3 businesses, which I said yes to, Yubi and Cheeky, is a business called Beach House Group. Beach House Group is a consumer product solutions house. That's what today I'm the co-CEO of that business. And what we do is we develop the best-in-class brands with some of the biggest celebrity influencers in the world today. And that's come off the back of building brands such as Yes2, but most importantly, brands such as Yubi and Cheeky. We've built the infrastructure and the ability and the know-how how to develop and commercialize these brands, but most importantly, these are huge celebrity influencers who want to get involved with us because we know how to give back as well. And so the next version of our business, we're actually about to launch an oral care brand. You'll be seeing this most likely in Sephora later in 2019. And we created a brand that not only gives back, but because of that, we're able to partner with Kendall Jenner, who, despite being a Kardashian or a Jenner, has an unbelievably incredible amount of social influence, which we are looking forward to use for good. We're also partnering next year with a small little singer by the name of Ariana Grande, and we've created a pet care brand called Good Human. Now Ariana, we're working very closely with a manager. She wasn't interested in, we actually were pitching to her beauty and all the other stuff. She didn't like beauty, she's very insecure, she doesn't want to be associated with beauty products. And I was actually looking at her social media, her Instagram, I said to her manager, why does she post every 10th posting about her dog? And he said, oh yeah, no, she's got 9 rescue dogs. She's obsessed about dogs and about helping dogs. And we said, oh well, we've actually been developing a pet care brand called Good Human. And so we've partnered with her. We're launching that in 2020. And this is Millie Bobby Brown. Every single one of these brands is a give back brand associated really closely with a particular charity, so that every single product sold is related to also having a major impact in the world. And that's it, guys. My message here today is that when you think about the next business that you create, you think about the next place that you're going to work, make sure that you make it your business to make a difference. Thanks very much.
Do you start with a charity and then find a business, or do you start with a business idea and then find a charity who suits it?
That's a great question. So it depends. In the case of UB, it's a bit of the same at the same time. I would call it a social enterprise. It's more of a social enterprise when you start with a charity and then you think of a business model. And there's nothing wrong with that, and social enterprises are absolutely amazing. The difference between what I'm passionate about and what social enterprises do is that social enterprises are limited by the fact that their main aim is to resolve a cause or a problem. And then they come up with a business model in order to get the funding to do that. I believe that if you come up with a great product or concept, there's no limit to how big that idea or product and brand can be, and that the bigger you grow, the more impact and the more you can help a particular cause. So we now are over 4 million kids. The impact we've had with helping the school supply problem, and we've identified it as about, altogether there's about 5 million kids a year who don't have school supplies. We're only right now providing about 1 million a year. We've given 4 million altogether. We're trying to get to be able to sell at the level that we'll actually be able to give 5 million a year. That effectively solves that problem. And then we go on to the next problem. But the brand and the product continues. And so I think that by creating a brand and a product opportunity first, you really you don't limit the size. It also is better for attracting the capital that's needed. We would never have been able to build the company the size that we did without being a company that has profits and that investors want to invest in and they see an exit opportunity in.
What do you think that balance is between profits and charity?
So what a good balance is?
Yeah, so is the profits generated equal to the charitable activities and that cost, or do you think that it's something where there's much more leverage in that? And what's the sort of balance do you think in these?
So, I've seen a whole bunch of different ones. At the end of the day, it really depends. I think it's got to be meaningful. You see a lot of guys who give 1% for the planet. You see a lot of people who say we give 5%. I think the ones, excuse me, that I doubt the most are the ones that say we give a percentage of profits, because anyone who runs a business knows that profit can be extremely subjective. How much do you pay yourself, and then that's the profit. So what I like to do is support companies that give at the top level. So for us, I come up with 5 ways when I speak to companies that are asking for help about how do we create a sincere or authentic alignment with a charity. The first thing I say is you've got to look for a couple of things. One, alignment. So if you're going to be a school supply company, give to education. Don't be a beauty company that gives to saving the forests in Amazon. There's nothing wrong with that, but people won't get the connection. The great things with Tom's shoes, for instance, is people associate, I'm buying shoes, and giving people who don't have shoes. It's an easy association, and then you get the halo effect of people actually going, oh wow, this brand is associated with that charitable cause. That's cool. A lot of companies I actually speak to, most of the time they're big companies, and the CEO decides, my kind of favorite charity, I'll give you an example. There's a company in entertainment or services, corporate service events, and the CEO was giving to an orphanage in Nepal. I say it's a great cause, but it was one of his own personal orphanages that he gave to, and a lot of the employees came up to me and said, we don't really care about that cause. We think it's a lovely cause, but we wanted to come up with something that we all decided on together and that also relates to what we do. And so I think if you're in food, give to a hungry, to hunger. If you're in school supplies or you're in school, give to education. It's much more. The next one is transparency. And that's where the profit thing comes into it. So what we do is the one for one. It doesn't matter what our profit is. I mean, we've made good profit last year. This year we lost money. But the amount we gave went up every single year. And we publish it to everybody. We publish it in an impact report every year because we have to say, we sold 20 million items, we gave away 20 million items. It's as simple as that. Nobody can ever doubt us, and it's easy to audit. And so those are the companies that I like. Then there's brands like Who Gives a Crap. They say we give 50% of our profits away. Obviously profits is subjective, but 50% is a hell of a lot. That's great. And then there's brands like Thank You that basically give all of their profits away. And then they publish exactly what the impact has done. So that's also great. So transparency, I think, and authentic alignment are some of the biggest things. The next biggest thing for me is impactfulness. So I like to say to people, everybody can give to the Cancer Foundation, which is, everyone's affected by cancer, but you can generate $1 million for cancer and you're not really changing, you're not really making a dent. Or you can...
Depends who it's targeted.
I mean, it's good. I mean, $1 million is a lot, but I just like to think that if you partner with a small charity, for instance, maybe like a Clean Up the Beach charity, $100,000 for a small charity, even like Titan and that, can make a massive difference to their budget. Whereas if you're giving $1 million to the Garvin Institute, you're like, 0.1% of their budget every single year. It's fantastic, don't get me wrong, it's amazing. But if you want to be really impactful and you want people to associate your brand or your business with a charity, it's good to be a lot more impactful.
But then it comes down, like you see it in a lot of the big organizations now, it comes down to tangibility, where the Garvin or prostate cancer or any of these cancer foundations are giving sort of small projects that people can invest in. So you're funding one piece of research, and so then it is tangible and impactful.
That's become the new way of giving, and that's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. So directed, we call it directed giving. And so they, rather than giving to the whole pot, which is not that popular anymore, you come up with certain projects, and then people, and that is exactly what I'm talking about, because what they're trying to appeal to is all the research is saying people want to have an impact. And yes, I want to give to the Garvin Institute, but how does my $100 make an impact? Well, if you actually, if my $100 is going to help one person who's having chemo, I can connect to that. Wow, I'm helping one child have chemo. That's cool. I'm giving. And that's been really effective, and I'm all for that for sure.
Forgive me, I'm one of the people in the room who is not business. I don't have any business background, so excuse my ignorance. But
not at all.
When you have a company that you give one product for every single thing that you sell, how do you maintain your profit margin? So do you create something that's cheap, or do you sell it more expensively? And if you are making it cheaply, how do you maintain your quality and are you environmentally friendly?
Okay, I want to tell you something, because you're not a business person, that I always wait for that question, and it's usually the smartest, most experienced business person who always asks it. So that is the main question of this whole thing. So the answer being, what we did with Yubi and with Cheeky is, in order to make it still a profitable business, we had to take out something. And so what we took out was the marketing budget. So in a typical consumer product business or brand business, you would allocate about 10% of your sales towards marketing. What we believe is that instead of spending 10%, usually it can be upwards of 20% in the early days, we decided that instead of spending 10% of sales on marketing, we're going to spend 10% of sales on the give. So the give comes to tens of millions of dollars. It equals about 10 to 15% of our sales at the end of the day, because we're buying it at cost and we're doing economy. We've got massive economies of scale. We're making millions of pens and pencils to give away. And what we do is we use a tiny little bit. Our marketing percentage is about 2 or 3%, and that just boosts the message of the give. And we've proven through our businesses that the give message is as powerful as the marketing message is. And so we swap it around, and so that enables us to still keep our profit margins. Social enterprises, on the other hand, will use all of that to invest straight back, and that's why they give all of their profits back into the business, which is great, but they're not out there to make profit and to attract investors. We are, and we do that because we think that the more investors, the more capital that comes in, the bigger the company gets. The bigger the company gets, the more we sell, the more we sell, the more we give. That's the concept. So great question.
Yeah. So if you're a charity, how would you encourage a charity to go out and try and find these partnerships, or do they wait for them to come to you?
No, great question. I mean, the last time I had that question, it was a charity, a guy stand up from a charity, it was a Meals with Wheels, actually, great charity, and said, well, I'm working on a business model because we want to obviously create we want to generate revenue that's more annuity, and we think it's better to do that through a business. And I said to him, well, why don't you take all the time and effort and the money you're going to spend on building that business model and go and find a business partner? Because if I go back to this thing, what I honestly believe is that if you can get number 2 and number 3, I had a more dynamic presentation where the fourth sector goes in between that. If you can get those two to fluidly work together, and maybe that's what Titan does. It's bringing the right charities together with the right businesses. What I envisage an amazing future to be is that when you register your business, you are not only do you tick the box on, what type of tax, election you do, you tick the box on, okay, who's your charity partner? There are people there's consultants now who are starting to do that because it's becoming so important. But I think as this becomes more taken up, this idea, and as companies move towards this, it's harder for bigger companies to do it because they have profit expectations. But for a new company, you go in and you say, we give, this is how much of our revenue is being given, and we're going to choose a company from the beginning. And hopefully if there's enough charities who are there at the right time, we'll be able to create this fluid market of charities and not-for-profit organizations working together with new businesses. What?
How do you think that this would work in a situation where a charity is actually more focused on rights-based work? And like we work with refugees, we work with people in conflict and disaster, which is not a tangible product. You can't really match a beauty product or something else to that. Would this be limited to something that's actually really tangible for the consumer?
No, that's a great question. So in our portfolio of brands, we've got altogether about 12 different brands. I divide them into what I call cause-led brands and then all the other brands. A cause-led brand for me is Yubi and Cheeky. They are brands that are actually known for their give. So, I mean, when I meet people, they go, oh, Yubi, you're the Toms of stationery. People have said to us before. I was like, great, that's exactly the message I was trying to give. Then we have beauty brands. Now, every one of our beauty brands, I've got a men's skincare brand called Marlowe, and that gives to an organization called Clean the World. Clean the World is an amazing organization where they actually collect all of the leftover hotel soap. And they put it all together and they send it to third world countries because the hygiene is so poor there, and they've been actually tangibly able to have an effect on diseases being spread. Now, is Are any of you going to buy my men's skincare brand because it gives to clean the fountain? No, you're not. And so at the back of it, it says how much we give. And in our messaging, we talk about how good the brand is, the proprietary blend, the branding, the this, the that, and it's probably the number 5 or 6 item on our unique sale attributes that we talk about. And so it's our principle as a brand company that we always put any brand, whether or not the give is going to make a difference or not, it's our principle that we do that. Do people find that and like the brand because of that? Yes. But the percentage is probably 5% of people. Whereas when it comes to UB and Cheeky, which I call cause-led brands, it's high as 30% or 40%. Don't get me wrong. People will still only buy the brand if it's priced right and it looks great. Then they buy it and they read about the give and the cause and what it does, and then they become loyal customers and they start to become ambassadors and espouse the brand for you. But you can still, of course there's going to be just brands that don't work with that, but I still believe that those businesses should still always, every business should have a brand or a charity that they give to and that they support. And not just for reasons because you're helping the consumer, but what it does for the employees in the business, what it does for the owners in the business, and what it does for the whole world, is immeasurable. Great questions, really awesome questions.
Thank you, Lance. Really insightful.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Really overawed on everything, so please do tap into
Great. Thanks, everyone. Pleasure.
Very good.
Pleasure.
Very
Pleasure.
inspiring.
Hope you-